Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dennis here, a retired NYPD detective, 9/11 first responder. Just wanted to go live. It's first time talking about my experience on September 11, 2001. So I just wanted to share my experience with everybody. It's a very emotional day. So on September 10th, I got a notification. My local sheriff's office came to my house with a teletype. It's an electronic notification from one police department to another, notifying me to respond to police headquarters at One Police Plaza in Lower Manhattan on September 11th at 9 a.m. On September 11th, I was driving along the West Side Highway. I was 5 or 6 blocks from the towers itself. I remember clear, beautiful morning and looking at the towers, and it was just an unforgettable sound that I heard. So a jet engine makes a very specific sound when it's in full throttle, almost like a whistling, very high pitched, which was odd to me because no plane should be. I shouldn't hear that sound from an airliner driving down the West Side Highway. So as I was looking at the towers, I watched the plane bank into the tower. And from my aircraft background, I knew it wasn't an accident. I pulled over. I sat in my car, trying to figure out what actually was happening at that time. So I got out of my car, started walking towards the towers. And at that time, well, I was injured. I have a leg injury, and it was one of the reasons why I was heading to police headquarters. So it took me some time, but at the same time, cars, people running in all directions. I think I got 2 blocks from the towers, and that's when the second plane hit the South Tower. I mean, in my mind, I knew at that moment none of this was an accident. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Lexi. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Um, it was just disbelief at the time. It was it was chaos. Everybody, even myself. I mean, being NYPD, you're not trained for this. We're trained for so many different things. We go to constant training. Hi, Fuzzy. I'm sorry I missed you, but this is something that we don't train specifically for. It goes instinct kicks in. I'm sure every first responder, every available person, instinct kicks in. It was the first tower, the North Tower was hit at 0846 a.m. and the second one was at 9:03 a.m. During that time I was still making my way towards the towers, and the upper portion of the tower on fire. Flames were rolling out. You had just heavy smells, and it was chaos. I can't explain it any other way. I th Most of the people there had no idea what was happening. Even with my experience and witnessing what I just saw, it was still a disbelief. It's hard. It's the first time and I've really talked about it out public. It was it was like watching a war movie. trying to capture and understand everything that was happening at that moment. Excuse me. We had all first responders showing up on the scene at this time. Moments later, there was officers assigned. Several fire department stations are right there. There's one across the street from the World Trade Center. Everybody was rushing towards the buildings, not knowing exactly what was happening while people were running away. I was standing on the corner. I don't remember the street name, but it was on the West Side Highway when the tower started to collapse. Uh, you kind of I froze in a moment, not knowing what to do. But as the smoke and parts and ash, everything started coming down, rolling down towards the street. The noise was horrific. I can't explain the noise that was taking place at that moment. But people rushing past me, officers, first responders were trying to get people out of the way. I started waving people. There was a building halfway down the block. I started waving them, kind of forced our way into the building to take cover from everything that was coming our way. It was just imagine you're in a lit room and somebody turns the light switch off. That's the only way I can explain it. And there had to be 15, 20 more people in this, I think it was a building lobby, kind of hunkering down, trying to keep them safe, myself safe at the same time. Because, and you can see people pushing up against the glass, trying to grab them to pull them in, and them fighting because nobody knows what's actually happening. There wasn't a moment where it got light again until after the North Tower collapsed. It was people just trying to find safety. At the same time, you're thinking, in my head, I'm thinking to run out there and try and help or do more than I can. But at the same time, I'm in this room with a bunch of people that are screaming and crying. It's it's a moment in my life that I'll never forget that I constantly relive. And as we get closer to this day, it starts kicking in and the emotions start going. Um, I was stuck down at the World Trade Center for 3 days. Unfortunately, somewhere along the lines, I didn't have my ID or my shield, so I was kind of unable to do a lot of things because I couldn't identify myself. Even going to a supervisor to try and call my command, knowing that this was a terrorist attack, it made everything more difficult. If you didn't have ID or someone didn't know you, you couldn't come into the area. After things calmed down and you were able to walk back outside, the last thing I remember was escorting people out of this building. I mean, when I first went in there, I thought there was 10, 20 people. There was probably 50 or 60 people in there with me. At that time, I caught the cavalry showed up. Every available officer, every available first responder was on scene. At this time, me not knowing I have any communication, NYPD and all the emergency services, they had a command post set up. Uh, uh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk and think at the same time and, pay attention to who's joining. Um, It was I don't know how to explain it. I remember standing there when the planes did hit and watching people fall, escape burning buildings, and jumping to their death. Joey, thanks for coming. Hey, Maddie, Heidi Cakes. I don't remember if I got you, Lexi. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Um, Doing this live made it a little bit harder. Watching Ron and Ed, um, I wasn't sure if I was going to go live because that was tough watching their stream, but I wanted to share my experiences with you. Like I said, once everything kind of cleared and you were able to go outside, keep in mind I was dressed in business attire. I had dress slacks on. It was a white shirt and a tie. Um, I just remember taking tie off and kind of pulling my shirt out of my pants and trying to cover my face as much as I could, trying to give support to anybody that I could since I couldn't get on the rubble. So I just remember seeing the firefighters on the West Side Highway helping each other out, water. Eventually we had a temporary morgue set up and like I don't remember if it was a tent, but evidence collection. So when we call it the bucket brigade, as Ron mentioned, every time a bucket came out, it got sifted through. It went through a screen, and anything that was thought to be evidence was brought to this temporary location. And the temporary morgue was the same thing. We, we were just trying to get a handle of the entire situation. Like I said, I was there for 2 or 3 days. I don't, you kind of lose track of being there and witnessing everything. It was constant madhouse. It was controlled chaos. That's the only way I can say it. We had people, civilians on the West Side Highway lining up, bringing cases of water, food. There was food trucks coming down that were getting stopped and offering food to everybody. Eventually, when they opened up the roads, I mean, they closed the bridges down, and that was part of the reason I lived upstate in the time. So it was difficult. I remember getting back home and getting out of my car and undressing in my driveway, and that would going to the hose, hosing myself down. And that's when it hit me. That's when the emotions and I lost it. Everything set in and I realized what just took place. You know, Changing the subject from 9/11, what makes this harder for me is on September 10th, 2004, two of my old partners from the 6-7 squad were murdered when they went to arrest an individual. They were shot and killed on September 10th, 2004. Patrick Rafferty and Robert Parker, two detectives that I worked with. So it intensifies this date more for me. Now, NYPD lost 23 officers, FDNY lost 343 people, and the Port Authority Police lost 37 people. That's just the first responders. We're not talking about, I believe it was just under 3,000 civilians lost in the towers that day. Then we can't forget about the Pentagon, the flight in Pennsylvania. You know, Another thing that makes it harder, the understanding of it is we are still losing first responders. to illnesses. I lost 3 people I worked with. My captain, Captain Barry Galfano, he died in June of 2011 from illnesses from being at the World Trade Center. Officer Stephen Driscoll was an emergency service unit. He responded on September 11th and died in the towers. And Detective Stu Fishkin, he died May of 2015 from illnesses related to 9/11. So when we talk about 9/11, 2001, we got to keep talking about it because of all the victims and all the families that are still dealing and suffering with the loss of their family members. So that's a big thing for me to swallow, is that we're still losing first responders and heroes from 22 years ago. Some of these people, their family, I know personally since I worked with them, it makes it harder when they're posting about their family members. So I just wanted to give everybody my experience from 9/11 from another detective's perspective. I thank you all for joining me. I wasn't going to make this long and go into videos. I have a bunch of photographs from the 9/11 memorial. I think it was a year after when they cleaned up the footprints of the towers. Um, Security had let me in down to the lower section to take photographs. It's it hits home. It hit home. It hit home every year. It's like it was yesterday to me. I know all of yous here. I appreciate each and every one of yous coming to my live. It's a lot, especially hearing it from retired detectives and first responders that been there. Ron and Ed, and then coming to my stream and hearing more about this. It's a lot to take in. You know, for us, one way or another, we know somebody personally that we probably worked with or ran into on the job that died on that day. So it's difficult. It really is. I've missed the Bills in chat. I seen him say hello to everybody. He called me at 9 o'clock this morning to make sure I was okay because today's a difficult day. I can't put it no other way. Lexi, exact grief never ends, and for me, I've dealt with a lot of trauma guilt, I believe is what they called it, because of the situation I was in, that I wasn't able to be boots on the ground, removing debris and helping the search. You know, I asked myself for years why, and I'm sure all of us have. It's taken a step back and understanding and thanking God, and praying for the ones that we lost and the ones that are still getting sick from it. It's it's a lot to take in from everybody's perspective. All right, guys, I'm gonna try and lighten the mood up a little bit. I'm getting uh, very emotional. Like I said, I wanted to share you with everybody that's here. You guys are great. This is a great community. Joey, Brittany, Sully, Fuzzy, Lexi, Wendy. Who am I missing? Heidi Cakes is here. This is also a test for like one of my first lives. I know I went out crabbing. Wendy, you're there. I knew I missed somebody, but learning curve doing the lives. I got Streamlabs working up now, so trying to get this down packed, learn everything I can, bring. So me and Mr. Bill, can bring a lot more lives to you guys. Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. It's it's a tough day. I'm trying to do the best I can, I guess. And so I wanted to show you as I had this here. So as police officers, we call that a morning band. You know, anytime an officer gets killed, we put it over our shield. I haven't taken mine off since 2001. Um, I have a hat just like the one I'm wearing. This one's brand new. I had a hat that was wearing on that day, and I have that locked up in one of my safe. Uh, oh, I have a storage bin. I tried to dig it out, but I can't lift it because still recovering from neck surgery. But it has every newspaper for the entire month of September 2001. I was going to try and bring it out and show everybody the front page of the newspapers from that month. But unfortunately, I can't lift that up. All right. Hey, Joey, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying. All right, guys. I didn't want to keep this going. I'll never stop talking and then be more of a mess. I definitely don't want to bring everybody else down. It's tough, but I really appreciate you all being here. It means a lot to me. It really does. So I have an ending clip, and it's pictures back from right before 2011. I'm sorry, September 11, 2001. Um, it's just a short clip. It's a 20-second clip. Shows the towers. Myself in uniform. But it was actually Shield Day when we all got promoted to detective, the street crime unit. You'll see Captain Barry Galfano. He's in the middle of all of us. He's a tiny little guy. And then I have pictures of Detective Stu Fishkin and Officer Stephen Driscoll there as well. That's my September 11th memorial to the officers I worked with and to every first responder that lost their life and is still getting sick. We have a lot of people that advocate for the ones that do get sick. Um, I can't forget the civilians either. They're victims of this heinous attack on our country. So I just want to say God bless to all the victims and all the family members and everybody that's still dealing with illnesses from September 11th. And God bless all of you for joining me and taking the time out of your day to hear my 9/11 story. Like I said, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here for me. All right, guys, I'm just going to play this real quick for you. Thank you.